The price of kindness. The stars had always seemed distant to humanity. For thousands of years, people looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. The answer came in 2087 when the first ship from the Galactic Coalition arrived above Earth. Ambassador Elena Martinez stood in the landing zone that day. She was a woman who had spent her life believing in the power of dialogue. Her dark hair was streaked with grey, and her eyes held the wisdom of someone who had seen both the best and worst of humanity. When the alien delegation stepped off their vessel, she did not step back in fear. She stepped forward with an open hand. "Welcome to Earth," she said. "We have waited a long time to meet you." The aliens were called the Thalari. They were tall beings with silver skin and 3 eyes that seemed to see through everything. Their leader looked at Elena for a long moment before speaking through a translation device. "Your species is young," the Thalari said. "But you may have potential. We invite you to join the Galactic Coalition if you prove worthy." Elena smiled. "We will prove it with our actions, not our words." And humanity did exactly that. Over the next 40 years, Earth became something unexpected in the galaxy. While other species competed for resources and power, humans chose a different path. They opened their world to refugees from dying planets. They shared their medical knowledge freely with species who had never asked for help. They sent engineers to rebuild worlds destroyed by war, asking for nothing in return. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Dr. James Walker became famous across 12 star systems. He was a surgeon who spent 20 years traveling from planet to planet, operating on aliens whose biology he had to learn from scratch. When asked why he sacrificed his own comfort to help strangers, he simply said, "Because someone had to." Earth built hospitals on worlds they had never visited. They cured diseases that had killed millions of aliens. They sent teachers to educate the children of species who had no schools. They gave food to the hungry and shelter to the homeless, regardless of what planet they came from. The galaxy called Earth the sanctuary world. It was meant as a compliment, but some species said it with a smirk. They thought humans were naive. They thought kindness was weakness. Ambassador Martinez heard the whispers in the Galactic Coalition chambers. She saw the looks that other species gave her. Some were grateful. Many were amused. A few were contemptuous. "You give too much," one alien diplomat told her. "In the galaxy, those who give everything are taken advantage of. Those who show weakness are destroyed." Elena looked at the diplomat with calm eyes. "We do not give because we are weak. We give because we are strong enough to spare what we have." But the galaxy did not understand. They saw humans cry during sad stories and thought them emotional fools. They saw humans keep small animals as companions and thought them sentimental. They saw humans build parks and gardens instead of weapons and thought them unprepared for reality. What they did not see was what humanity kept hidden. In a secure facility deep beneath the mountains of Colorado, Fleet Commander Marcus Stone reviewed reports that only a handful of humans ever saw. He was a man built like a wall, with gray eyes that never stopped calculating. He had spent his entire adult life preparing for a war he prayed would never come. "Status of the Shadow Fleet," he asked his second-in-command. "All 3,500 vessels fully operational, sir," Lieutenant Commander Rachel Foster replied. "Hidden in facilities across the solar system and beyond. Weapon systems ready. Crews trained and waiting." Marcus nodded slowly. "And the Coalition still thinks we have no military. They think we disbanded our armed forces 30 years ago, sir. They believe we turned our weapons into farming equipment." Marcus allowed himself a small, cold smile. "Good. Let them keep believing that." This was humanity's secret. For all their talk of peace and compassion, they had never truly disarmed. They had simply hidden their strength. Every aid ship that left Earth had been built in the same shipyards that constructed warships. Every doctor who traveled the stars had passed through the same training facilities where soldiers prepared for combat. Humanity remembered its own history. They remembered what happened to civilizations that could not defend themselves. They remembered the price of being unprepared. So they prepared in secret, hoping they would never need what they had built. And for 40 years, they did not need it. New Haven was established in 2115. It was a colony world on the edge of explored space, a planet of green forests and blue oceans. Over time, 6.8 million humans made it their home. They built cities that blended into the natural landscape. They created farms that worked with the ecosystem instead of against it. They welcomed aliens who wanted to live in peace. Governor Thomas Chen loved New Haven. He was a man with a gentle voice and a gift for bringing people together. He had spent 15 years turning the colony into a model of cooperation. Humans lived alongside 3 other alien species there. Children played together in parks. Families shared meals. It was everything humanity hoped the galaxy could become. "This is what we dreamed of," Thomas said during a video call with Earth. Different species living in harmony. No conflict. No hatred. Just people trying to build good lives. Ambassador Martinez watched the transmission from her office on Earth. She smiled at Thomas's optimism. But there was a worry in her eyes that she could not hide. The Vraxis Empire had been watching New Haven for months. The Vraxis were a species built for war. They had scales like armor and eyes like predators. Their empire had conquered 47 worlds. They believed that strength was the only law that mattered. Peace was a lie that the weak told themselves before they were destroyed. When the Vraxis commander first contacted New Haven, Governor Chen tried diplomacy. "We have no quarrel with your empire," Thomas said, keeping his voice calm and friendly. "Our colony threatens no one. We only want to live in peace." The Vraxis commander looked at him with contempt. "Your species is weak. You waste resources on helping others. You build schools instead of fortresses. You are an insult to the natural order." Thomas took a breath. "Perhaps we see the universe differently. But there is room in the galaxy for different philosophies. We do not need to be enemies." "You are already our enemy," the commander replied. "You just do not know it yet." The transmission ended. Thomas immediately sent warnings to Earth and the Galactic Coalition. He requested protection. He asked for intervention. He begged for someone to help negotiate with the Vraxis. The Coalition promised to investigate. Earth promised to send diplomats. But bureaucracy moved slowly, and the Vraxis moved fast. On March 3, 2127, 15 Vraxis warships appeared above New Haven. There was no warning. There was no declaration of war. There was no demand for surrender. They simply began firing. The orbital bombardment lasted 22 minutes. Plasma cannons turned cities into molten glass. Kinetic weapons struck with the force of nuclear explosions. The forests burned. The oceans boiled. The sky turned black with smoke and ash. Dr. Sarah Kim was in the children's hospital when the attack began. She was a pediatrician who had moved to New Haven 5 years earlier. She had left a comfortable life on Earth because she wanted to help build something beautiful. She had spent her days caring for sick children, both human and alien. When the explosion started, she gathered every child she could find. She led them to the emergency shelter beneath the hospital. 43 children, crying and terrified, looked at her with desperate hope. Sarah held them close. She sang songs to keep them calm. She told them stories about Earth, about blue skies and green grass, about a place where they would be safe. But safety was not coming. The shelter's walls cracked with each impact. The lights failed. The air grew hot. Sarah found a communication device and sent one final message to Earth. Her hand shook, but her voice was steady. "This is Dr. Sarah Kim from New Haven. The Vraxis are destroying everything. They gave no warning. They showed no mercy. Millions are dying. Please?" Her voice broke for just a moment. "Please remember us. Remember what they did here. Do not let our deaths mean nothing." The transmission cut off as the shelter collapsed. 6.8 million people died that day. Men, women, children, families, entire communities erased in 22 minutes. The planet that had been a symbol of hope became a graveyard. News reached Earth within hours. At first, people could not process it. There had to be a mistake. The Vraxis would not dare. The coalition would have stopped them. Someone would have helped. But the satellite footage was undeniable. Where there had been cities, there was only destruction. Where there had been life, there was only silence. Ambassador Elena Martinez watched the footage in her office. She sat perfectly still for a long time. Then she stood, walked to the window, and looked up at the stars. Tears ran down her face, but her expression was stone. Fleet Commander Marcus Stone received the news in his command center. He read the reports 3 times to be certain. Then he pressed a single button on his desk. Across the solar system and beyond, 3,500 hidden warships received an activation signal. The crews had trained for decades. Now their training had purpose. The Galactic Coalition released a statement expressing deep concern over the incident. They promised to review the Vraxis actions. They suggested that perhaps there had been a misunderstanding that led to the tragedy. Earth said nothing. For 8 months, there was only silence. No diplomatic protests. No angry speeches. No pleas for justice. Humans recalled every ambassador from alien space. They brought their citizens home. They closed their borders. The galaxy watched and waited. Some species felt shame for what had happened. Most felt relief that the naive humans had finally learned how cruel the universe truly was. They expected humanity to beg for protection. They expected tears and weakness. They were about to learn they had misunderstood everything about the species from the small blue planet. In the darkness of space, invisible to all sensors, the Shadow Fleet moved into position. And Fleet Commander Marcus Stone gave the order that would change the galaxy forever. Prepare for war. The Reckoning. The Galactic Coalition Council chamber had never been so quiet. Representatives from 200 species sat in their seats, waiting. For 8 months, Earth had been silent. Now, finally, a human was coming to speak. Ambassador Elena Martinez walked into the chamber alone. She wore black, the color of mourning. Her face showed no emotion. Her eyes were cold. This was not the same woman who had welcomed aliens to Earth 40 years ago. Something fundamental had changed. She stood at the center of the chamber and looked around at the gathered species. No one spoke. No one moved. For 40 years, Elena began, her voice quiet but clear, we gave you our best. We shared our medicine. We welcomed your refugees. We rebuilt your worlds. We asked for nothing in return except the hope that kindness could make the galaxy better. She paused. The silence was absolute. You called us naive. You called us weak. You laughed at our compassion. You mocked our empathy. And when the Vraxis murdered 6.8 million of our people, you expressed concern. You promised to investigate. You suggested we might have provoked our own slaughter. Her voice grew colder with each word. We showed you our culture because we hoped you would never have to see what lies beneath it. We showed you our kindness because we hoped you would never have to face our capacity for something else. She looked directly at the Vraxis delegation. You made a mistake. You thought our compassion meant we were unable to be cruel. You were wrong. Elena turned and walked toward the exit. At the doorway, she stopped and looked back one final time. We gave you 40 years of our best. Now you will see what we kept hidden. And when this is over, you will understand that our kindness was always a choice, never a weakness. She left the chamber. Within the hour, her ship departed alien space and returned to Earth. The Vraxis High Commander watched the transmission and laughed. Empty threats from a broken species. They have no military. They have no weapons. What will they do? Write us angry poetry. His officers laughed with him. They had conquered 47 worlds. They had crushed armies and destroyed fleets. What could the peaceful humans possibly do? The answer came 3 days later. Fleet Commander Marcus Stone stood on the bridge of the ECS Retribution. Around him, stretching in perfect formation across thousands of kilometers, the Shadow Fleet revealed itself. 3,500 warships, each one a masterpiece of human engineering. They had been built in secret over 40 years, hidden in facilities scattered across a dozen star systems. Marcus was 58 years old. He had grey hair and eyes that had seen too much war in simulations and training. Now, finally, those simulations would become reality. He felt no joy in this. Only grim determination. "All ships report ready, Commander," Lieutenant Commander Rachel Foster said. She was his second-in-command, a brilliant tactician who had spent 20 years planning this campaign. "Open a channel to the Vraxis Empire," Marcus ordered. The Vraxis High Commander appeared on screen, still smiling with contempt. "You wish to negotiate?" the commander asked. "You wish to beg for mercy?" Marcus looked at him with empty eyes. "No. I am offering you one chance to evacuate your civilians from military installations. You have 6 hours." The Vraxis commander's smile faded. "You dare threaten us? You have no idea what you are facing." "I know exactly what we are facing," Marcus replied. "The question is whether you understand what you have awakened. 6 hours. Evacuate your civilians. This is the only warning you will receive." He closed the channel. The Vraxis did not evacuate. They thought it was a bluff. They sent their own fleet to intercept the human ships, confident in their superior numbers and experience. They had never fought humans before. Captain Yuki Tanaka led the first strike. She was 34 years old, with short black hair and reflexes that seemed impossible. She had been training in combat simulators since she was 18. She knew every tactic, every maneuver, every weakness of enemy ship designs. Her fighter squadron dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly inside the Vraxis defensive perimeter. Before the enemy could react, she had already locked onto her targets. "All wings, engage," she said calmly. The battle lasted 38 minutes. When it was over, the Vraxis defensive station was debris, and every single human fighter had returned safely. The Vraxis High Commander watched the footage in disbelief. How? How did they move like that? His tactical officer had no answer. The humans had fought with precision that seemed superhuman. Every shot had hit its target. Every maneuver had been perfect. There had been no wasted movement, no hesitation, no fear. "Send the second fleet," the commander ordered. "Crush them." The second fleet never reached Earth's forces. General David Okonkwo had already deployed ground teams on 3 Vraxis military bases. He was a massive man from Nigeria, built like a mountain, with tactical genius that had earned him respect even in secret. His teams moved through Vraxis installations like ghosts. They disabled weapon systems. They destroyed supply depots. They crippled communication arrays. By the time the Vraxis realized they had been infiltrated, it was too late. "Targets neutralized," General Okonkwo reported. 0 civilian casualties. Enemy military infrastructure destroyed. This became the pattern. Humans struck with devastating precision, always targeting military assets, always avoiding civilian areas. They fought with a combination of advanced technology and tactical brilliance that the galaxy had never witnessed. But what truly terrified the Vraxis was the discipline. Human soldiers followed strict rules of engagement. They offered medical aid to wounded enemies. They evacuated civilians from combat zones. They treated prisoners with dignity. The Vraxis had expected rage. They had expected vengeful slaughter. Instead, they faced cold, professional justice. After 2 weeks, the Vraxis discovered something that made their commanders panic. Humans were not just attacking Vraxis military targets. They were liberating Vraxis slave colonies. General Okonkwo arrived at the mining world of Kresh 7. 5 million slaves from a dozen species worked there in chains, forced to extract resources for the empire. When human ships appeared in orbit, the slaves expected new masters. Instead, the general's voice came over every speaker. "We are not here to enslave you. We are here to free you. You are now under Earth's protection. Medical teams are landing. Food and water are being distributed. You are safe." The slaves did not believe it at first. But then human soldiers began breaking their chains. Doctors began treating their wounds. Engineers began shutting down the brutal mining equipment. Word spread to other slave worlds. The humans were coming. The humans were liberating. The humans were not like other species. On the 20th day of the war, the Vraxis High Commander attempted to negotiate. He sent a message to Fleet Commander Stone offering to withdraw from human space and pay reparations. Marcus watched the transmission without expression. When it ended, he opened a channel that broadcast on every frequency the galaxy could receive. "Governor Thomas Chen tried to negotiate with you. You killed him. Dr. Sarah Kim asked for mercy. You gave her death. 6.8 million people begged for their lives. You showed them fire." His voice was ice. "There will be no negotiation. There will be no terms. There will be complete demilitarization of your empire, or there will be the complete destruction of your military. You choose." The Vraxis tried to fight on. They lasted 3 more weeks. Captain Tanaka's fighters destroyed their shipyards. General Okonkwo's ground forces captured their command centers. Human intelligence operatives, led by the brilliant analyst Dr. James Chen, decoded every Vraxis communication and predicted every move before it happened. The Galactic Coalition tried to intervene. They sent delegations to Earth demanding that humanity cease its military action. Ambassador Martinez addressed them one final time. "Where were you when New Haven burned?" she asked. "Where were you when our children died? Where were you when we begged for help?" She stood tall. "We showed you our best for 40 years. You let them kill our innocents. Now you see what we kept hidden. Now you understand that we are capable of both great kindness and terrible justice. Remember this lesson." After 11 weeks, the Vraxis Empire surrendered unconditionally. Their military was dismantled. Their leaders were brought before galactic war crimes tribunals. Their slave colonies were all freed. Earth's forces returned home. Not a single civilian population center had been targeted. Not a single war crime had been committed. Humanity had waged war with the same precision and discipline they had shown in peace. The galaxy was forever changed. Species that had mocked human kindness now feared human anger. Those who had laughed at human emotion now respected human resolve. The universe learned that the gentle species from the blue planet was gentle by choice, not by inability. On Earth, a memorial was built for New Haven. 6.8 million names were carved into black stone. People came from across the planet to remember those who had died. To remember the price of peace. To remember why humanity could never again be defenseless. Fleet Commander Marcus Stone stood before the memorial on the first anniversary of the massacre. He placed a single white flower at its base. "We did not want this war," he said quietly. "But we will never forget why it was necessary." The Shadow Fleet did not disband. The 3,500 warships remained hidden, watching, waiting. Earth returned to its peaceful ways. They reopened their hospitals. They welcomed refugees again. They shared their knowledge. But now, when humans spoke of kindness, the galaxy listened. Because they had learned what happened when humanity's compassion was mistaken for weakness. They had learned that the deepest kindness often comes from those who are strong enough to choose mercy over violence. And they had learned to never, ever test that choice again. Ambassador Elena Martinez returned to the Coalition Council 1 year after the war ended. This time, when she entered the chamber, every species stood in respect. "We are still the same people," she told them. "We still believe in kindness. We still believe in helping others. We still believe the galaxy can be better. She paused. But we will never again be defenseless. We will never again watch our people die while others debate. We are your friends. We are your healers. But cross us, harm our innocent, and you will face the full measure of what humanity can become. The galaxy understood. Earth had shown them both faces of humanity. The culture and the strength. The compassion and the fury. The doctor's hands and the soldier's resolve. And in understanding both, they finally understood humanity completely. The stars that had once seemed so distant now held a new truth. Humanity was not alone. And neither was anyone else who would threaten them. The garden still grew. But now everyone knew about the thorns.